Now, there was a recent forum hosted by MoveOn.org, which is a progressive organization. And Hillary Clinton, as well as Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders, were all invited to answer questions from progressives at this MoveOn.org forum. Now, Hillary Clinton, as I said, was invited, but she did not show up. Now, let me put this in kind of context here. MoveOn.org is one of the bigger progressive groups, and they hosted this forum. And Martin O'Malley showed up, Bernie Sanders showed up. They both answered questions. It wasn't very widely known. This is the first I've heard of it, this happening this year, but this forum did happen, and Hillary Clinton decided not to show up. Now, Clinton, as I said, she's the front runner in the Democratic nomination process, right? Not taking questions, didn't show up. She decided that instead she had better things to do. What those things are, I have no idea. But it certainly didn't involve meeting with any progressives. Now, Anna Galland, who was the executive director of the group's nonprofit wing, said this about Clinton's absence. She said in a statement, she said, quote, "It's a shame that Secretary Clinton decided to participate in the MoveOn member forum. She missed an opportunity to speak directly to and energize the progressive base she'll need in her corner, not just to win the nomination, but also the general election, if she is the party's nominee. Our forum gave grassroots progressives the chance to pose substantive questions directly to presidential candidates, exactly what democracy is about, and we're grateful to Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley for participating." Now, if you were wondering for a moment, since you know that the DNC isn't exactly, didn't look kindly on unsanctioned debates, right? Well, this was a sanctioned forum. The Democratic National Committee actually had given their blessing to the forum back in October in response to criticism that the Democratic Party they weren't giving enough debates. And they're still not giving enough debates. But the DNC said, okay, well, we'll allow you to have this forum. Really, how magnanimous of you. Wow. Gee, thanks. A forum that almost no one ever heard of gets your blessing. Great. And Clinton didn't even decide to show up. Now, I do remember Hillary Clinton saying something about, hey man, just give me a place and a time. I'll be happy to show up and debate. I'll be happy to show up and answer questions. Boy, howdy. I'm looking forward to more debates. Well, this wasn't a debate. It was a forum. So they weren't actually debating each other, but they were taking questions from grassroots progressives. Now, apparently, Hillary Clinton, not exactly a fan of that. Now, what's funny is that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, head of the DNC, praised this forum back in October when she called it an important opportunity for voters to engage with the candidates. But apparently, as I had said, it's not important enough for the frontrunner for the Democratic nomination to actually fucking show up. All right. You can tell that I'm a bit, angry about this. I'm a little worked up. Why? No, it's because Hillary Clinton, for us progressives, she's spitting in our eye. She's spitting in our eye. And this isn't the only time. This is the second time she's snubbed progressive groups. Remember, Netroots Nation. She was invited to show up there. She didn't. She decided she had better things to do. Once again, I don't know what, but it certainly wasn't meeting with progressives. Her base. Remember, she says, well, I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who gets things done. Well, what are you getting done by skipping all these progressive meetings and avoiding questions from actual progressives? Now, I realize that running for the president, kind of tough, kind of busy, right? You got schedules, you got to do fundraising, et cetera, right? You got to meet with delegates, and you got to campaign, right? I get it. However, Bernie Sanders, he does all of that, plus his job in the Senate. You know how many votes he's missed? He's missed like 4% of his votes. 96% of the votes in the Senate he shows up for, despite the fact that he's running a campaign for president And he's given speeches out everywhere. He was in Atlanta the other day. He still shows up for his job. And he still shows up to this forum. Hillary Clinton doesn't show up. Doesn't show up. What's her excuse? I don't think she has one. And I'm sure that there are people who are shilling for her that are going to say, well, she doesn't need an excuse. Yeah, but she's literally avoiding talking to the progressives in the party, taking questions. If you can't take questions from progressives, should you really be able to be trusted to be able to handle the presidency? To take questions from Putin? If you can't handle your own base, who can you handle questions from? I'm just saying, that's a question. But I do have kind of an answer, and this is what I think. This is my personal opinion. I think she doesn't want to answer questions from progressives because she's not a progressive. She's a centrist corporate Democrat. Furthermore, I don't think she even cares about progressives. Now, look, her shift to go leftward in her rhetoric, that was only there so that she could copy Bernie Sanders, because he actually excites progressives. The members of the Warren wing, which include Bernie Sanders, he excites them. He excites actual progressives. Now, I'm not saying that Clinton is a Republican, right? No. She's not a Republican. She's a centrist Democrat. She's a third-way Democrat. It's exactly what her husband was as well. And there are some good centrist policies. Don't get me wrong. We had a great economy under Bill Clinton. Things were good. But nonetheless, that's not what the country needs right now. There were some decisions that were made back during that time that came up to bite us in the ass later. And that's a problem. So I'm not saying that she's a Republican or that she's even as nearly as bad as one. No. But she's certainly not a progressive either. And that's what I'm trying to say. And if you support her, and you know that, that's fine. What I'm here to do is I'm to tell you the truth. I'm here to tell you that she is not a progressive. That her rhetoric sounds progressive, but her policies are not. But she doesn't believe in the progressive parts of the party. If you're a centrist Democrat and you support her, that's fine. That's great. You vote your conscience, man. If you're a centrist Democrat, great. Vote for her. But if you're a progressive, you have to know that she's not exactly on your side. Now, that said, look, the Democratic Party, there's no test of purity here. The Democratic Party is a big tent, but I'm just pointing out what she actually is. She's not a progressive. And that's the thing. She's not one of us. She doesn't actually want to talk to us. She wants to pander to us, yes, but she doesn't want to answer any of our tough questions that we might have. For example, on her stance about prisons, right? Why she's taking money from the Geo Group, which is the largest private prison contractor in America and is responsible for for-profit prisons. We could talk to her about that, or talk to her about her ties to Wall Street. She doesn't seem to want to talk about those, or to be challenged on that. She doesn't want to answer those tough questions. And at the end of the day, she's not at all interested in the progressive wing. She has and always will be a centrist Democrat. Whether or not she says she evolves on some issues, and hey, she has. Maybe she was always for same-sex marriage. We don't know. But she recently evolved on that. Hey, you could say the same criticism about Barack Obama. He also evolved on that issue as well. Whether that's political expediency or not, I don't know. But what I do know is that there are other people in the party that have been for gay rights long before it became a popular issue, and who have championed that long before it became a popular issue. They didn't have to evolve on it. They were always on the right side, whether or not it was politically expedient. And maybe it would be nice to have a candidate that's always on the right side, instead of waiting for everyone else to deem what the right side is. But anyway, when it comes to being a centrist Democrat, at one point, there was a time where centrist Democrats were needed. But now is not that time. We need a massive shift away from the neoliberal, third way democratic political machine. What we need is a real political revolution. What we need is a real progressive. And what we need is not more of the same, not more of the status quo. What we need is someone like Bernie Sanders.